Hi, everybody. Happy Saturday. It's Krishan Wright, the host of the Blaxit Global podcast, joining you live today for another episode of The Sessions, our web series where we talk to experts in the field about issues that will help you in your process to moving abroad. And I hope you are excited for today. We have a lot to discuss, and I'm delighted because we will talk about how to generate additional income to fuel your Blaxit. And how are we going to do it? We're going to talk about home sharing. So I have an amazing expert that is going to be joining us today, and I am going to bring her in. It is Pamela Holt, who is an attorney and real estate professional. She is also the creator of InsideBNB. So welcome to the
Hi.
session.
Hi, Krishan. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to talk to your audience today.
Awesome. So it's always great to have an episode of the sessions, especially when we have group members who are sharing their expertise. So I'm excited that, again, that you're here. And, one of the big things that I've been talking about in the group and polling the group is how to have more income to fuel your Blaxit. So you have so much expertise in this area, and I know I'm encouraging everyone to have a pen and paper handy for this because Pam is going to drop some serious nuggets and help us
I'm
all
just,
get that
I'm
paper. But
I'm just saying
before we
that
get
I got
into
some
it,
ways to get you there faster.
yes, exactly. And before we get into how you're going to do that, I would love for you to share with people your story and how you got started.
Okay. So I have been in real estate for years and years, my entire career. As a real estate broker, I've owned my own company. I've worked for a variety of major chains. I have managed companies. I'm also an attorney. So I am all in on the real estate front and always have been. But really, quite recently, I'd have to say, I've shifted my focus. And although it's not much of a shift, it's more of a pivot to focus on helping people learn the age-old art of home sharing. And so when I say home sharing, that's kind of the generic form of what everybody else is calling Airbnb. But I refuse to give Airbnb all the credit, and I'm going to call it
Exactly.
sharing because they don't send me a check. And so I will not give that to them that easily. But for Black people, home sharing is not a new construct. I mean, it's since we got here, we've been sharing our spaces either because of economic reasons, financial reasons, or because culturally that's how we are. So, back in the day, when we weren't allowed to spend time in accommodations that other people were welcomed in, we had the Green Book. And so instead of the Airbnb platform, people referred to the Green Book for accommodations, and sometimes they were in people's homes. And it's not so different from that now. But even in the 50s, when we started acquiring some wealth and some real estate, you might have grandma might have had a two flat. Your family might have lived on the first floor, grandma might have lived upstairs, and Mr. Brown might have lived in the basement, right? And Mr. Brown was the tenant. And so short-term rentals, vacation rentals, home sharing, all different words for the same kind of concept is really what I want to talk about now. And it's a way to earn extra income with a fairly low threshold. I mean, it's a business, so you're running a small business, but it has a fairly low threshold entry, and it can be wildly rewarding.
Wow. And that's the part that, of course, got my attention. When I travel abroad, I tend to stay in short-term rentals
Mhm.
because I don't have an aversion to hotels. I don't mind doing that domestically. But when I travel to different countries, it's really important for me to have the full experience. So
Right.
whether I'm staying in a room on someone's property or actually in someone's home, it just adds that level of authenticity to the
Mhm.
cultural experience. And that's what
Agree.
I love about so much.
Well, right now with the pandemic going on, it's even more popular. So I know people are
Hmm.
like, "Why are you talking about home sharing when I can't even go outside of my own home, let alone with that?"
Exactly.
So here's the deal. For most
Mhm.
of us, you have to prepare to share your home. I mean, I don't know about you all, but you cannot come and share my house right now. I am not set up for it right now. There's a process, and so I want everybody to take the time that they need to become comfortable with the concept, to put the strategies in place that you need to do it effectively and safely, and then be ready because next spring, assuming we start to recover from the pandemic and people are out and about more, you'll be ready. You'll be ready. And so one stat that I like and I find encouraging, because let me back up. In March of this year, when everything went awry, there was a Thursday right around the middle of March where I all of my reservations for the year canceled at one time. And
What?
I start booking ahead because my property is close to a convention center. So, people know about the conventions a year in
Right.
advance. They start booking 6 months in advance. So I start getting bookings in February,
Mhm.
but they're not for July and August. All of them canceled in one day. And so I went to bed because that's how I had to deal with it because I lost all my money right then and there. And I had to figure out exactly what was going to happen with this. So for a while, I mean, there was nothing. The platforms, if your guests hadn't already canceled the platform, some of them canceled the reservations for you. So you had no choice. Cities,
Wow.
depending on how the different municipalities handled it, cities were disallowing or temporarily banning short-term rental uses. So business closed. But as things started to open up, and as of April 6th of this year, short-term rentals took a leap back up to the extent of 320% increase from what happened in February and March. So, we haven't gotten back to exactly where we were pre-pandemic, and who has, but it's looking really good. I am now, I've kind of switched things around a little bit. I do longer stays as opposed to
Mm.
shorter stays. And so I've been able to get to the same level of income as I had last year, which is really
Wow.
something I could not have imagined in March when all my money went away on that one day. So, so it's
It's amazing,
coming.
like a little over 6 months, to have like a near complete turnaround. When you think about it, you just shocked me in a lot of ways. It's just one,
Okay.
the stat of over 300%. And then also just thinking of how whether you can control it or the platform itself can say, hey, because of obvious reasons with the public health issue that we have to pull back, being able to pivot and think about how you can do it safely makes total and complete sense. But for me, it also makes sense to even think about Airbnbs or short-term rentals as a safer alternative because everybody's going through cabin fever right now.
Right.
And being able to go into a short-term rental where you can control the environment, you can control who's coming in, the cleanliness of it, even if you have to do a little bit of extra cleaning for your
You do.
own peace of mind, it seems much safer to me than going into a hotel chain where you have numerous people who may or may not be positive for the virus or who are practicing, or even the hotel practicing proper cleanliness. So it just seems like it makes sense, particularly at this time.
Well, the statistics are saying that short-term rentals are the way that people are going to travel, at least in the short run. Because just like you said, people don't want to go into those dense situations with those mega hotels and hundreds of rooms. 1,500 people have slept in this bed in the last who knows how long, and it's not like that with the short-term rental. So I think we're well positioned to do even better than before when people still had some level of concern about the short-term rental scenarios. Now, you know, we're in business, and that's why I want people to position themselves so they can take advantage of it. Because just want to give you a couple of statistics. Um,
Mhm.
so globally, the short-term rental, vacation rental, we use those terms just interchangeably because depending on where your property is located, it's either in a vacation spot, destination, or it's an urban situation. But I'm using those as one generic term. So globally, that industry is a $169 billion industry. And that's a lot of money. And, you
Wait,
know,
I'm sorry. Could you say that one more time for me, Kim?
Yeah.
100. That was with a B?
The
That was
B,
B?
billion. Yeah. So a lot of money, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is make sure that Black people, people of color, get a piece of that because right now we are woefully unrepresented in the hosting market. And even in neighborhoods that are predominantly Black, we don't show up we hardly show up at all in the hosting stats. So other people are hosting even in our neighborhoods, and right. So we need to get on that. Just some more information. The average nightly rate, and this is globally because of course it differs city to city, urban to I guess not urban scenarios. It varies country to country, but on average, the nightly rate is $106 a night.
Wow.
Which is not bad when you think about it, but you know, the other end of the spectrum, I mean, you know, mine is many, many times that per night. And
Oh,
you know, I mean, right now I'm at $1,000 a night for the house that I live in.
wait.
And
In the house that you
in
live
the house
in.
that I live in.
That
But
is crazy to me.
but you
Like,
know,
this is a no-brainer.
oh, this spring, I'm going to increase my nightly rate, and I'm positioning myself now between now and then because I know demand will be able to support it. And so, you know, I'm not this unicorn out here. Other people can do this too. And so, you know, I'd like to talk about some of the strategies to get people there. But I just wanted to kind of give you some numbers so you know that this
Yes, bring the
can be
numbers.
a real situation for you. You know, it's not just you know, something that I do for I'm not just playing around with it. I have, you know, shifted my whole business structure around this because you know, I loved being a real estate agent, but I was only able to help you know, the people that I could help. You know, I could never expand my reach without, you know, multiplying myself because I'm the one who has to be there for all the showings. I'm the one who has to be there for all the buyer tours. This way, if I'm able to educate people about short-term rentals, you know, we can take this much, much larger than I could ever do on my own selling real estate one-to-one. So another statistic that I think is important and I really enjoy is that of the host population, 56% are women. And so, so we're out here earning income for our families. We are supplementing the household income. We're paying down our debt. We are paying our rent and our mortgage, replacing our full-time jobs. We are saving for retirement. We are traveling. We are doing a lot with our short-term rental income. You know, so if you're not doing that now, you really should. You should.
Yeah, there's no reason to leave money on the table, especially right now, because there's so many things that we cannot control. You know, for
Yeah.
me personally, I suffered a job loss earlier this year.
Right.
You know, there's lockdowns that are happening again, particularly in New York City and certain boroughs. So, with all of these variables that you can't control with respect to the pandemic or even your income, being able to pivot, think outside the box, get information from experts like you to help people make develop a strategy to
Right.
help them have additional income that will enable them to move abroad. It just is the perfect opportunity. So, with that, do you have to own a home in order to take part in the short-term rental market, or is it
Oh,
possible
oh.
to do it a variety of ways?
Okay, so here's the thing. there are lots of different ways to do this, and I've done it a lot of different ways. I'll talk about some of the scenarios, because I know people are saying, well, yeah, okay, if you have a house and it's located right by a convention center, of course you can do it, and that's probably a very uneasy situation for you. But you don't have to own a house. You don't have to have a house. You don't have. Let me start from the beginning and tell you what you can do. So let's start from number one. I've got 4 personas for you, 4 different ways that you could share your space or share a space and earn extra income. So the first is the opportunist. So this is the person who, when guests arrive, this host packs their bags and they leave. So they either go stay with family, or they go to a hotel themselves. So if you're renting your house out for, say $300 a night, but you can find a hotel that's $100 a night. So then you're arbitraging that difference. You're getting your $200 a night, and you're staying in a hotel. Maybe that's okay for you. Or maybe you stay with a relative.
Wow.
Or, maybe here's what you really ought to do. This is what I've done. This is where it gets good. Good. So the guest, will book their stay, and I'm like, okay, so then you know how much you're gonna get. It's several $1,000s sometimes, and then I turn around and I book my trip, and I take my daughters, and while they're staying in our house, we're in Paris, or we're in Brussels, or Spain, or Africa, or Mexico, all the places that we've traveled, while somebody else is sleeping in my bed, but they're sending me the money to sponsor this trip. So I have been to, I think, 12 different countries on somebody else's dime. And
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so that's, it's hard to beat that. Come on, it really is. It really is. The first time I did
I'm ready to get up out of this house today.
Fluff your pillows and take a few pictures and get on out. But the first time I did it, I have to tell you, I didn't believe it was going to work. I was like, who is going to come and stay in my house? I live here with my kids and my dog. I'm like, what? This isn't going to work. But I had a friend convince me that I should give it a go. And I was planning to go to Africa. My daughter was in Africa doing some volunteer work. And, I never wanted to leave my business, because when I'm gone, it stops. That's it. I am the business. I have to be there or I'm not making any money. So I never really wanted to travel a whole lot and be away from the business. And I also didn't want to leave my house empty. But I decided I would do it anyway. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a tiny trip to Africa, even though it's a whole different.
That was a tiny trip.
I would take a little tiny trip, because I don't want to leave all my money and stuff over here not working for me. So I said I was going to take a tiny trip, and I got somebody who, like, instantly after posting my listing up for a day or two, I had somebody book during the time that I was going to be gone. Yeah. So then I got on a plane, and a day later I got to Africa, and while I was there, I got another booking that was real close to that booking, and then I got another booking, and so my tiny trip then turned into my 3-week trip and my 3-country trip in Africa. And I was like, okay, now you know what, this might be something Pam needs to do. So that was in July. And it looks like at this point, now that I've had several seasons of this, my season is up until about November, because nobody's coming to Chicago in the winter if they don't have to. So, but that year, from July until November, the house that I live in with my dog and my kids made $50,000. So,
side money, not associated with your business or any other interests or investments.
Even just in the country, most of the time.
Hard cash.
Yeah, yeah. And I was, like I said, I was gone. I was out having a life. I was enjoying my kids. I was in Africa. I was like, oh my God, I'm in Africa. It was fabulous. And the next year, I was like, hey, you don't have to tell Pam twice. The second time, the next year came around and I was prepared. I was like, okay, well, let's just see if this can happen again. And so I had the whole stretch of the year, which ran from like March to November. And during that time, the house made $97,216. And I was like,
Wait, what?
I took 3 trips to Europe that year. I went to Mexico. We did a Napa Valley tour. I mean, it was a beautiful thing. It was a beautiful
Yeah,
thing.
and that is so, whether it be for travel or to, luxury or leisurely travel, to fuel your Blaxit or to pay off debt so that you're not carrying any of that
Absolutely.
while you're planning or even when you leave. We're talking the equivalent of having another full-time job just by using the home in which you live and sleep in
Where I live
to
at.
generator. Like that is just mind-blowing.
Well, I used some of the money to make improvements in the house itself. One, so that I can
Oh,
increase the nightly rate, but also two, so that I can better position my house when I'm ready to sell it when I leave. So, I don't want to tell anybody how to spend their money, but there's lots of ways you can use that money to advance, your situation. So let me tell you another way you can do it. If you
yeah.
do it like the way the opportunist did, you can be the savvy host. And so the savvy host is the person who they have a residence, but they host to guests while they're on the premises. So maybe you have a coach house or an attic or a basement, or maybe you have maybe on a duplex. And instead of renting the other unit as a long-term rental, a traditional rental, you do short-term rentals instead. Maybe you have an in-law suite, or you're still on the premises, but you have the ability to host guests separate from you. So you're not sharing a space with them in this scenario. They're on your property, but they're not in your, in your living dwelling.
Oh, okay.
So that's the savvy host.
I've done that. When I was in New Zealand 2 times, I was able to do that. I was able to stay in like a Balinese hut that was like, for lack of a better word, that was on someone's property. And then I also stayed in, I guess it was like a converted dwelling on their property. So they had a living quarter and I had a living quarter. And then I've also done it when I've been in someone's home. But that makes sense. So you could, I guess, potentially convert like a garage or, maybe create another structure. Is that possible?
Oh yeah, I'm working with a client right now who has a 100-year-old row home in Chicago. And back in the day, they had these walkout basements, right? So it's partially below grade. It has windows, but it's partially below grade. But it has its own entrance because they work people, service people, contractors would come in that way. But she's built it out and into a living space, and now she lives above. She has 2 floors above, and then she has this basement space that we're going to rent out for probably $130 a night. And she doesn't have, a kitchen in the space. So she didn't build out a kitchen yet. I have suggested to her that she put in a small kitchenette, because then we'll be able to charge even higher nightly rate. But right now it's just kind of a bedroom space, a private bath, and a living room space, and they have their own entry that they come in. She's gonna launch next month, so it's exciting. Yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited for her. So let me tell you about yeah, no, it's exciting. So the next person, the next persona, the next way you can do this, and I've done this myself as well, is the rentrepreneur. So if you decided to go this way, you stay in your own home, but you rent an apartment, a separate apartment from yours, and you sign a long-term 12-month lease, but it's with the full intention that you are going to short-term rent this space. You're not going to take a 12-month tenant. You're going to take a series of short-term rentals. Now, the reason is that on average, a short-term rental will gain 30% more revenue for you than a long-term rental. So 30% is significant, right?
Yeah.
And but you have to, you have to be careful, because you have to make sure your lease allows for such an arrangement, because some don't. And you have to check with the local laws in your town, because some municipalities will require that the owner live somewhere on the premises, like we were talking about in the last example. So you have to, you have to do your homework, but that's a possibility. I've done that before. I've rented a place, and so, say you rent for whatever. God, let me use some round numbers. You rent for $1,000 a month for a 12-month lease, but when I've done that before, and I've gone to Paris for several weeks, I came back, and the apartment, which was a 1-bedroom apartment, made $6,500 that month. And
What?
and again, I wasn't there. I have never met a single person who stayed in my places. I've never met them because I'm not there. So I have a whole scenario set up with a keyless entry,
Mhm.
and I have a person who's, on the ground, in case there's an emergency or something. I have someone, that I could call to make repairs or minor repairs, those kinds of things. But I've never met any of these people. And so, yeah, so the 1-bedroom made $6,500. I was like, girl, this is good. But let me give you the other side of it, though,
Yeah.
um, because it sounds really great, and you're like, why don't you get 5 of those? Yeah, you
Mhm.
can. You can. But here's the issue. When COVID hit, if I had 5 rental units that were all sitting empty, it would have been a
Ah.
really ugly story. So you have to, you have to be able to carry them empty in the case of an emergency. But COVID was a pretty. That caught everybody off guard, and everybody was hurting in a variety of different ways. So, but you gotta account for something like that, or some kind of an emergency situation where you might not have guests in for a while, and you do have to cover the cost yourself. Um,
So with that, you talked about, I know we still have one more scenario to go through, but you talked about a lot of money that can be generated using these strategies and the different personas. So from your experience, I know you've used a lot of the money and revenue that you generated to travel the world. Is there a percentage that someone should keep in reserve to pay for things like maintenance, or in that example, you have a rental that, God forbid, is empty for a period of time that's outside of your control. And so rather than feel like, oh my gosh, I'm freaked out, I have no reserve because I spent my money, is it a good rule of thumb to keep and allocate a certain percentage for
Well,
incidental?
it's always a good idea, if you're investing in real estate, if you have a landlord kind of scenario, that you have an ability to cover some months when, when you don't have a tenant, maybe you're between tenants, or when the tenant, comes up short, you still are on the line for that mortgage or that rent. So it's always a good idea to have that cushion. I'd say, 3 months would be a good place to start. And a lot of hosts were caught without that kind of situation earlier this year. Now they've made it up, most of them, with the fall starting to open up. But at the same time, if you've got to pay a mortgage or a rental payment due in April, you're not waiting until the fall. That's not going to help you any. So you do have to have some sort of cushion, or you should, to make sure these kinds of things don't happen. But that's the case with everything. That's emergency fund for your own home or your own unit that you're living in. So it's not different from that, I don't think. So I got one more persona for you. This is when you go full professional host. You're in it now. You
All right,
you
lay it on me.
yeah, you're all in, right? So you buy another place. So you have your own, unit, but you're an investor now. So you're going to purchase
Hmm.
your place with the sole intent to short-term lease it. So here are a couple of things you got to watch out for, though. As a owner, if you're financing your property, you are going to be charged you're going to have to come up with a higher down payment than you would if it were your personal residence. So
Interesting.
in a lot of cases, you're going to have to do at least 20% down for your as your down payment, and
Mhm.
you are more than likely going to get hit with a higher interest rate. Um, but interest
Ah,
rates are so low right now that I've seen some investor rates that are still under 3%. So it will never get better than this right
mhm.
now. If you decide to buy a place. So
Yeah,
and
because you can also use that money to pay down, right? I would imagine if you wanted to.
pay down.
So, for example, in that scenario, if you had another property that you were going to go full out and rent, is it possible then to use some of the money that you've generated through your
Oh,
short-term rental to aggressively pay it down?
yeah, oh yes, absolutely. You can do that. You
Oh,
can even use if you have been hosting for 2 years. If you have 2 years of tax returns that indicate the amount of rental income you're generating from your short-term rentals, a lot of lenders will allow you to show that as extra income and will allow you to qualify for that investment unit even easier than just using your own personal income. So there are a lot of ways to do it. I mean, in that scenario, I would caution you to be able to uh, position yourself so that you can pivot. So if the short-term rental market isn't going well,
mhm.
put a long-term tenant in. So always leave yourself some flexibility so that you're not stuck, carrying two places. One which is just sitting empty. One is your personal residence. That's one thing, but to have another one just sitting empty isn't isn't particularly sustainable. How about that?
Yeah, that's true. So, a couple questions. So, I am admittedly introverted. And
Very much.
so, oh, okay. But that hasn't stopped you from making money.
No, that doesn't stop me from making money. I can't let it stop me from making money. I would never sell a thing to anybody if I couldn't get outside of myself and extrovert enough for work. And the same is the case with hosting. I could not ever, uh, outside my personality, to meet guests at the door and welcome them in, a big hug, and I've made dinner. That's not my
That's not
personality.
you.
No,
That's not me either.
I wouldn't, I'd probably enjoy them and it'd be okay, but it's not, I'm never going to get to that because I'm introverted and I would be like, why would I want to do that? I don't know those people. So like I said, I've never met any of my guests and I have
Mhm.
had over 250 people, I've had people from like 6 different countries. I've had, all these guests and I wish them all, the best of times in my places. And I will chat it up with them and, all of that, but I'm not going to be there when you get there. And I think a lot of people prefer that because um, somehow it feels better to me at least, when you walk into a space and you're like, oh, here's my space, not here's this person's space right here. I'm about to go and, get in their bed. I don't think, I guess there's some people that want to do that, but I think the majority of people want a space that they can enjoy without you standing there.
Exactly. Yeah,
But
with me, yeah, as an introvert, when I travel and I go into someone's place, I may do like in someone's home for like a day or two, but I have to have my me time. And then
yes,
I think as a potential short-term rental host, I definitely would be like you, like the contactless, hey, hope you enjoy your stay. Looking
right,
forward to
right.
seeing that check.
Especially now with COVID, nobody's trying
Yeah.
to have you show up and be there with them. They don't want that. You shouldn't want that, and it's
Mhm.
okay. It's acceptable, and in a lot of cases, it's preferable. So,
Mhm.
so I want to talk a little bit about COVID because there are precautions that you have to take, and that we are likely going to be. These precautions may always be in place from now on. I just can't imagine that we're going to go back to life the way we knew it before. But so there's a cleaning protocol now that wasn't as extensive prior to COVID. So I have a cleaning service that comes in. They come in masked, they come in with gloves, they have little booties on, and they not only do the cleaning, but they also disinfect all of the high touch areas. So all of the light switches, countertops, doorknobs, everything gets a special disinfectant that we weren't doing before. But we are. So, and then a lot of times it's required, but even if it's not required, I have a buffer now in my calendar where there are 2 days between bookings. So that because we're not clear on what's going on with COVID and how long it hangs around. And so who knows? So I have 2 days where I don't do back-to-back bookings. Now in the day, I have somebody who would check out at 11. I have somebody else coming in at 4 o'clock. And my cleaning,
Wow. It's like, keep it going.
I had to stay in Africa and I needed, some more money sent over.
Yeah.
But now I don't do that anymore. And that's just fine. And I let people know in my listing, I've got this protocol. When you arrive, I have a basket that has hand sanitizer. It has disposable mask. It has gloves. It has the thermos, the forehead, just everything, because I want people to be comfortable, and I want to make sure that whatever germs they have, to whatever extent possible, they take them when they go. So,
That's right.
Right. When my cleaning people do the laundry, I recommend just always having all white linens. And although people might not think that's all that stylish, there's a reason for that, because I put those linens in the hot water when I'm washing them, and the hottest dryer, and I add bleach, and that's just what we do. So we don't, so that's taken care of too. But it's, there's some changes. Everything right now requires changes based on COVID. So like I said, I've always had a keyless entry, but now you're seeing more and more of that. So people aren't even, exchanging keys. They're not even touching your, it's just different now. So I have a keypad on my door now where I give everyone their own individual code. And the code expires when it's time for them to check out. So if they decide to hang around longer, they'll be locked out because you.
I don't know where you're going, but you got.
I can't come back in here. So I can, change that at any time. And, my light switches, my heat, everything is, I operate everything from my phone. You can do it from, the beach, which I have done before. And you can automate a lot of the process so that you don't have to be, on the ground. And it works.
From your phone?
Yes. You can communicate with guests. You can go through the platforms, like all the major platforms have apps. So you're doing the communications and the bookings, through the app. And then, I'm setting the codes for the door. I'm turning on the lights before they come. I'll crank the heat of the air if I know they're on their way. If they need me, they contact me through the platform, because you always want to stay on the platform for security reasons. And, just in case you need a record to refer back to, you want to stay on the platform. So, I have people that will try to, let's just chat. No. First of all, I'm a lawyer. I got to have all my conversations in writing. So no, we can't just chat. So, we stay on the platform and we communicate, and it's been great. It has been great.
Wow, that's so smart, because I wouldn't even think of some of those things. Like the contactless makes total sense, but just to think about, being able to run this whole operation from your smartphone in another part of the world. And then what also I love is that all of the attention and effort you put into safeguarding not only your home, but also the safety of the people, your guests.
Yes.
While you may not interact with them, on a personal level, all the protocols that you're putting into place, the masks, the space between bookings, gives that person extra peace of mind when they come into your space, that, you're welcoming them into your home, but you're also concerned about their safety and well-being.
Yes. I mean, I have committed, Airbnb has they have a kind of an agreement that you sign with them that says you will adhere to the highest level of cleaning. And I had already done that anyway because, why wouldn't you do that? But it's gotten, obviously it's a bigger deal right now, and it shows you have a little badge on your listing now that shows you are, you are within this protocol and you're adhering to these measures. And that's the way it should be. It should be like that for you. It should be like that for them. So I haven't had anybody ask any additional questions, although I'm happy to share my procedure. But I'm there's a level of trust that you have to have in this situation regardless. But COVID has really made it much more serious. And so I spell out very clearly in my listing, the things that I've done, the measures that I've taken for their safety. And it's been working. It's been working okay. That's okay.
That's great. So I want to have a show home, like something that we would see. I'm going to date myself for a second. The life of the rich and famous.
Okay. Okay. You do not.
There's a Huffington Post article that has my whole age on there, so I'm.
I was like, hey, that's okay. You do not have to have a lifestyle of the rich and famous style. And I think one of the objections that people have with this whole situation is that they're like space insecure. They think their space isn't big enough, or they think it's not nice enough, or it's not luxe enough, or it's not this, or it's not that. But you'd be surprised at not how little that makes. It makes a difference, but it is not what drives the entire scenario. So, for instance, it is much more important. Your location is much more important than your actual listing, your actual unit. And there are ways to make your unit, there are ways to improve your unit, but you can't improve your location. So, so you start with the location, and I don't mean, people get this wrong all the time too. They're like, well, I'm not on the beach, and you can't see, whatever, the mountains from my place. And it's not, doesn't have to be about that in every situation. If you are near, like I said, I'm near a convention center. That's a anchor for my short-term rental business. If you're near a university or a hospital or a sporting venue, or a lot of different places where people go. The one that surprised me, I hadn't thought about this, and I had a couple of different stays like that this year. Not so far from the University of Chicago Hospital, and had a family came in, and one of the relatives was having an ongoing procedure. I'm assuming he was involved in some sort of cancer procedure. And so they had to be there for a month, and they were back and forth at the hospital with him on a daily basis. So, a month-long rental was fabulous, especially in this time of COVID where I may not have had any rentals during that time, but they took it for a whole month. I was out of town for a whole month, and it was, it was okay with me. So,
oh my God.
Don't let I want people to know, don't let what you think about your space hold you back, because we can work with that. I have, I'm working with several different clients where we're improving the space, but don't let that make the difference. And here's a personal story about that. So I told you I live with my dog and my kids, right? My dog has scratched up my hardwood floors in a way that is just super embarrassing, right? Because I'm in real estate, I see nice houses all the time. I look at my floors and I'm like, oh my God, but I can't do anything with it because he's just going to do it again, right? So I almost didn't list my house on Airbnb because of my floors, right? Because my floors are scratched up, because I didn't want to welcome guests and my floors are scratched up. Let me tell you, $97,000 later, I was like, well, I guess the floors didn't really make that much of a difference. Nobody's ever said, oh, if she just had better floors. So
I agree.
Don't let
Oh,
it hold you back.
exactly. And it's funny because when you said that, it gave me, when you went through the scenarios, I had like a light bulb moment. Everyone knows I'm in New Jersey, and I am not far from the Jets training camp. And, when you were talking about venues, it's like, oh, light bulb moment when whether it's a sports facility or a training camp, these people have to come train, and it's not just the athletes, it's the trainers, it's their families in some cases,
Yes.
just to kind of give, like you said, some perspective and ideas so that people don't get caught up in, wow, a little bit self-conscious about their space.
Mhm.
So with that, is it better? So I've done it before. I've gone in people's homes, and it's almost as if they're not even there, right? There's not a whole lot of personal effects and things like that. So where do you put all your stuff?
Where does stuff go? Okay, so I do recommend that you take as much of your stuff. Well, let's start at the beginning. If you have important papers and documents and passports and tax returns and those kinds of things, those are things you should likely remove from your home if you're going to have guests there and you're not going to be there for obvious reasons, right?
Mm.
But even things like you should, I would empty out the bathroom that they're using. So
Mm.
that none of your toiletries, your soaps and things, none of your things are in that. So they can have that private space. And if it means boxing it up literally in a cardboard, moving box, and taping it, and I've done this before, taping it up and putting it in the garage, give them their space so they don't feel like, somehow you all are roommates or something. That's not the look you want to go for. So, so I have, right now in my house, I have what they call an owner's closet. So I have one closet set aside.
Mhm.
You can put a lock on it, and I have, off-season clothes and my extra toiletries and those kinds of things in that closet. And that is not something that the guests can access. They can have access to the rest of the house. They can use the garage, but they can't have access to that. And I think most guests are they understand what that's about. Although I will say, in one unit that I had a closet and had sliding doors, which is hard to how are you going to lock that off, right? So I thought I
Ah,
had worked out right. I had one of those child proof locks on it, right? And I said
mhm.
on my listing, this is the owner's closet. Please don't enter. Made you space over here or whatever. I come back and I see the child lock is on the other side of the room. So I'm like, oh, you've been in my closet. Okay, see, I said don't go in my closet. So nothing was missing or anything like that. But it's just
Oh,
no, no,
God.
no. I've never had anything. I've never had anything missing. I've never had
Mm.
anything broken. I've never had. I had one issue. I have one issue, and I have a no party policy, right? But one day I let one person come in, and they told me they were doing like a, not a trade show, but like a party for clients, like a get together. And they were showing their line of products, right? So I was like, okay, well, that doesn't sound like a party. I got back home, it looked like a strip club blew up in my house. There was glitter and balloons and streamers, and somebody spilled some. There was sticky liquor on the floor, and somebody spilled something. And so the first thing I was like, oh, my feelings were hurt because that's my house, right? But then I
Exactly.
instantly contacted the platform. I sent them the pictures, and I sent them some receipts. They sent me, like, I think I claimed about $1,200 worth of damage, which and they sent me a check. And so I had the upholstery clean. I'm a cleaner, people mop up the liquor that they had on the floor. I got all the glitter up, the feathers, and all the stuff. I don't know what they were doing in there, but all that stuff was cleaned up, and we kept it moving. So all of
Wow.
the have a they have a insurance for you in the event that something like that happens. So you're covered as long as you're
God.
able to document the expenses that you're trying to ask them for reimbursement for. So that's good.
So that's helpful. And along that line, because that's super helpful, because I think another thing that people are nervous about is, well, even if I take all my papers and everything out, what if they tear up my home? What protections do I have? So along that line, if someone comes in your home and destroys everything, do you have the ability, or is it a wise thing to do to have cameras, or is that a no-no?
So here's where the trust piece comes in, right? You have the ability when you are considering whether you're going to allow someone to stay in your home, you have the ability to check the reviews because both the hosts are reviewed and then you get a chance to review the guests. So if you read down, your potential guests' reviews and they're like, oh, they're terrible, then that's a guest that you don't bring on, or at least I wouldn't recommend bringing them on. But if you read through and, I've read reviews like, this person left my house in better condition than, the way I left it or something like that, you can feel more comfortable that, they're not going to trash your house. Now, the other thing that Airbnb just started doing, although I stopped this a long time ago, is you cannot do a single evening rental because that's a sign for a
Oh,
party. You're only staying one night, and not to say that people aren't in town for one night, but
mhm.
a lot of times people rent especially in a larger home, they'll rent it for a one night for a party. So now now in my house, you have to stay. I had it at 2 nights. I think right now I have it at 3 nights, a 3 night minimum stay. So, so that's one way to prevent, the party scenario. But also, so when you're looking at their reviews, you'll also look at their verifications. Did they supply their email address, their phone number? Did they supply a social media link so that you can verify who they are? So that and really, I would have to say that the percentage of people that come in just to sort of trash your home is really, really low because once that happens, and you report it to the platform is going to remove them. They're not, that is counter to what the platforms want to have happening. So that's not going to go on too often. But there are situations where things happen, and so if you have pieces in your home that you just absolutely cannot live without, you might want to take those out. You might want to store those someplace else if it's so precious to you that you're really going to have your feelings hurt if something happens. Then that's something that you should not have in the house when you have guests. That's how I look
So,
at it.
and that's great advice. I'm thinking of you have a lot that's going, that's generating a lot of questions in my head. So, along those lines of safeguarding your personal belongings, when you come back into your home, because you're an expert in this, do you walk through your home and take an inventory when you return, or is it a best practice to photograph or video your environment before you leave, just to keep accounting of, your personal effects? I mean, I'm in my space day to day, and I sometimes forget where I put my keys.
Well,
So,
it depends on the scenario that you're operating in. I mean, if this is your house and you live here full time, there are, the little things. You might want to box up some of those little things, because how are you going to keep track of something that you put in a drawer, that you only see once a year? If something happens with that, when are you going to know about it? You're not. So one situation that I've had is I came back one time, and this is why I have come into this space to try to help women in particular with hosting. So I have my kids, right? So I came back one day after someone had checked out, and they'd made a mess. Not They hadn't trashed it, but towels are all over the place and water bottles and liquor bottles and all kind of stuff that people do when they're vacationing. But I came back and I had my youngest with me, and she walked in her bedroom and it was a wreck, and she was very upset about it. And I was like, oh my goodness, I have scarred my child. What's going to happen? I'm a bad mom. And I was so upset by it, and she was so upset, and I was so upset because she was so upset that I no longer come back to the house until my cleaning crew has been through. So they put it all back together. They let me know whether anything is that I need to address anything, like they spilled something here and you're going to have to replace this bath rug or whatever, they let me know so that I'm not walking in to something that is going to make me unhappy. So that's my tip. If you can do that, it took me several times of being, kind of funky after guests have, I've been a little salty when I'm walking in. I was like, "This is my house," so I don't do that anymore. And when I walk in, the cleaning people have been through. I've been like, "Hey, my house," I got my money back from my trip. I'm all is well with the world. And so they will, to answer your question, they will let me know if anything major is awry. But in terms of small stuff that you might be worried about, I would pack that up and then alleviate that worry.
Wow, that
Yeah,
is great advice.
you
And we
gotta
have
yourself,
another.
right?
I'm sorry.
You got to manage yourself, right? If you
Yeah.
if you have your feelings hurt by something rearranged, like I don't like when my stuff is rearranged. Even like if they if they shifted my books and stuff, I don't even like that because I don't. So, but clean people know, put her books back the way she had them. So okay. So, know yourself, know what you can tolerate. Maybe you want to check your bank account before you go back in. You're like, okay, well, whatever happens, I got this money right here, so I'm gonna be okay.
Yes, make that money.
Yeah.
So we have a question from someone in the group. So how do you keep up on local regulations if you're doing Airbnb abroad? So that is an interesting one.
So is the question, you're abroad, but you're trying to keep up with the local Airbnb
Yeah, I
restrictions?
would imagine if you're doing it, I would imagine if you are in the States, although I'm sorry, the person didn't put additional details. So if you can answer it
I'll answer
either
both
way.
about this.
Okay.
Okay, so Airbnb is in touch with hosts on a regular basis, right? They're going to email you any updates or any changes. They're going to let you know even locally. Like I got a message that Chicago was limiting the capacity in recently because of COVID, so that you could only have a certain number of guests. So they sent me that email. So I don't have to monitor Chicago's website all the time, although I do, but Airbnb informed me of that. So you're always going to know what's going on locally. You don't have to worry about it if you're not local while this is going on. Now, if you're asking, if you're abroad and you are renting out a place while you're abroad, so you're abroad and then you have a short-term rental that's in another country as well, you're going to get that same information about that location from Airbnb. So they're really good, I have to say, about communicating what's going on with hosts. They are the favored platform at this stage, but there are lots of other platforms as well. And there's a new one that I'm really excited about that's just for women hosting women. And
Wow.
there are Black platforms. There are gay platforms. There's a lot of different, and you can list on all of them. You don't have you're not limited to one. So they cater to different audiences, like Verbo and Home Away. You have to list an entire home. So you can't list a private room to rent. So, they have different audiences. You find the one or the ones that best suit your space and your, your intentions, your goals with your business. And then you list on all of them, or do you just pick one? Now there's different strategies and people look at it differently. So a lot of people will tell you just to list on one platform, because then all of your reviews come into that one platform and you'll end up, certainly the more reviews you have, the more trustworthy you become to potential travelers, right? They're potential guests. You've got 150 reviews and they all say you're great, then maybe you're great. But if you list on various platforms and you have 5 here and you got 7 over here and you got 3 over here, then you're not amassing the reviews that might give you the kind of trust and even the boost in SEO on that particular platform that might be beneficial to your business. So you got to make kind of a business decision on that one.
And as a digital marketer, it is all about social proof and
Right,
juicing that SEO.
right,
So
right,
I
right.
I am so excited and delighted that we had this opportunity to listen to all of your strategies and expertise. And I again just want to thank you for coming on to the sessions and for being a valuable member of Blaxit Global.
Oh,
So before we leave, I'm sure people are going to be watching the replay and wanting to connect with you. So, how do people find you?
okay, so I've launched a website because I want to, I'm serious about sharing this information because I did this, the first time I served as a host was about 20 years ago, and I didn't like it. And I stopped it. I only did it for like a summer. And the reason I didn't like it is because I did it wrong. I did everything wrong. And now I know, looking back, I was like, oh yeah, you did that wrong. Oh, no wonder you didn't like it. You did that, that, and that. So now I have a website, InsideBNB, and I am looking to help women host in a variety of different scenarios. So I'm not just talking about the investor. I'm not just talking about the private room. Across the board, I'm trying to help women learn the strategies that will help them become happy and successful hosts. So
Oh,
inside.com. I'm also on Instagram at inside_BNB. And yeah, come and do this. This is, make this money.
yeah. So, here's a selfish question because everyone knows my Blaxit is in 2023 when my daughter graduates. And like everyone in the group, I am finding ways to plan my Blaxit, countries I want to live in. How do I create income while I'm abroad? So, selfishly, I have to ask, are you sharing this like in a course? Because you just in this hour we've spent together dropped a lot of nuggets, and I'm sure that didn't even only barely scratch the surface of what you know. Please tell me that you put this out there in a
No,
course.
that's I'm working on a course right now that'll launch the
Oh,
beginning of
wow.
next year. Yes, because there's so much to learn. Now you can figure this out eventually, probably, I would say probably take you 8 years to figure it out on your own. That's 8 years of doing it wrong and wasting money and spending money you shouldn't and buying a bunch of stuff you shouldn't. Or you could take this course where I'm going to go through everything. I'm going to take you from never hosting all the way to launching a listing and then marketing that listing through social media and some guerrilla marketing and some other tactics. So there's a lot to cover. I mean, it's not just let me fluff my pillows and put on my keyless entry. And, there's a whole lot more. And one of the things that I want to say to women is I haven't found this out there. I haven't found experts in this space talking about safety. And that's a big situation for me. I do this on my own with my kids. It's real important to me that we're always safe. In a variety of ways, in every way possible. So I cover that, and then I just take you action by action through the whole process, so that you're not left sort of trying to figure out, what am I supposed to price this at? What's going to make sense there, or what am I going to do with this space? This is, I'm not even attracted to my space, so how can I make it attractive to somebody else? So we're going to go through the whole thing, and we're going to get you up and running, and we're going to get you to a place where you are earning income. And whether you use it for your Blaxit or you just travel around while you're trying to figure out where you're going to go and stay, take your money and do what you need to do with it. But position yourself as a viable host with all of the right strategies in place. So look for that. Sign up on the wait list. I'm going to start to release content, even though the course is not up. I'm going to start because I know people want to get going. Like, what can I do between now and the end of the year? And so I have some things that you can start to do and start to consider before you start to kick it up. And you can be in position to really be effectively hosting for the spring market when everybody comes back out and can't wait to go somewhere.
Yes, because I mean, between, and like I said when we started this conversation, make sure you had a pen and paper handy because I knew you were going to be dropping some serious gems during this conversation, which you have.
I hope so.
And the amount of money, I mean, in my head, I was thinking, oh, 5,000, 10,000, meaningful, but 5, 10,000, and you're talking like six
Mm-mm. My
figures.
house next year, if my house is less than $150,000 next year, I'm gonna be mad. How about that?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So I want to just encourage everyone, whether and thank you to everyone who is joining us live, and thank you to everyone who is watching this and will watch this on the replay. You have shared so much valuable information, and I hope that they sign up quickly to be added to your mailing list. And I know for myself, I am anxious for your course to come because,
Thank
again, keeping your eye on the prize, the things that you can do now in the near term to prepare for the spring market, and then also thinking long term about how you can create a sustainable revenue abroad through short-term rentals and home sharing. So I am again just indebted to you for this time and holding this space with you. And I look forward to having you on again. I mean, gosh, when this course goes live, I think we should do another episode of the sessions or something.
I love it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Pam.
Thanks.
Bye.